It was autumn in Auckland, and I was walking home a little before midnight. A friend's party had wound down the way they do, the music going quiet, people finding their coats, that last stretch of talk on the way out. That's somehow better than anything said inside. So we walked, the two of us, no particular hurry. The streets emptied out and slightly damp, our voices the loudest thing for a block in any direction. It was that hour when a residential street has gone completely off duty. Curtains drawn, a porch light or two left on out of habit, the parked cars beaded with the start of dew. A bin left out at the curb, waiting for a morning that hadn't come yet. Somewhere a long way off, the single rise and fall of a car taking a corner, and then nothing. The air had the cool, washed smell autumn gets after dark, the kind that makes you walk a little slower without deciding to, and our footsteps came back at us off the fronts of the houses, slightly out of time with each other. We weren't going anywhere in particular. That's the thing about the walk home after a good night. The house is the destination, but you're in no rush to arrive, and the road in between turns into its own small, unhurried country. I don't remember what we were saying. Something half-finished. The kind of conversation you could put down and pick up again a week later without losing the thread. And then, mid-sentence, not really meaning to, I looked up. There were clouds. I want to be careful about how I say this, because it sounds like nothing. Clouds. At night. But it stopped me, because what I was looking at were pale ribbons, drawn out across the sky, white. Actually white, the way clouds are at 4 in the afternoon. Soft bands of them, catching some light from somewhere, hanging there plainly visible. And the thing my body registered, before my mind could put words to it, was, you're not supposed to be able to see those, not at this hour. Clouds at night were a thing I knew about only by their absence, a patch where the stars went missing. Not this, not white ribbons, lit, laid across the dark like something left out. I stopped walking. My friend took another step, then noticed I'd stopped. And here's where it got stranger, because once I'd seen the clouds, I kept looking, and my eye went past them, to the sky they were hanging in. It wasn't black. I kept looking, the way you check a sum you're sure you've got wrong. I even did the thing you do. Glanced away, down at the road, the ordinary grey of it under the street lamp, and then back up, half expecting the sky to have corrected itself while I wasn't watching. It hadn't. It held. The dark behind the clouds wasn't the flat nothing I'd have drawn if you'd handed me a crayon and said night. It was blue, a deep one, the blue of deep water, of the sea a long way down, where light is almost gone but not quite. And lower, near the rooftops, there was a band of something paler, a faint seam where the sky met the city, one shade lifting off another. There's a particular feeling when your eyes report something your mind has already filed under settled. A small refusal. A flicker where, for half a second, you don't trust the looking. You assume the fault is yours, a trick of tiredness, the wine, the streetlight throwing the color. It's easier to doubt your own eyes than to doubt the rule. The rule has been right your whole life. Your eyes have been wrong before. But I wasn't tired enough, and it wasn't going away. I'd believed, without ever once examining it, for as long as I'd been alive, that the night sky was black. Not thought it, believed it, in the way you believe the floor will be there when you put your foot down. You don't check the floor. You've never checked the floor. You just walk, and it holds, and the not checking is the belief, so total it doesn't even feel like one. And there it was, layered, blue behind the white, and the belief just loosened, quietly, No drama to it. I was standing perfectly still on a flat street, both feet on solid ground, and somewhere under me a piece of ground I'd never known was ground had shifted half an inch. Nothing fell, nothing broke, just that small lurch you get on a staircase when you reach for one more step that isn't there. The body braced for solid and finding air. Except it wasn't my foot. It was a word. "It's blue," I said. "Look, the sky's blue." My friend looked, agreed it was, in the tone of someone agreeing it might rain, and we kept walking. But I was somewhere else now. I was turning a sentence over. I've always known the night is black, and right behind it, a smaller, less comfortable one. The black I'm picturing. Which black is it, exactly? Because there had been more than one. The first one I can reach for is a summer night, years back, in a courtyard. The heat of the day still coming up off the stone underfoot, the air thick with whatever was flowering, a mosquito or two doing their rounds. The adults are out there too, somewhere off to the side, talking the slow, circular talk of grown-ups after dark, the kind that has no destination, that you stop trying to follow and just let wash over you. A chair scrapes, someone laughs at something you didn't hear, and there's a child, head tipped all the way back, looking for the brightest star, picking it out, then looking for the next, tracing the 7 that make the shape everyone learns first. The plough, the dipper, the saucepan, whatever name I had learned for it then. Hunting for the made-up animals in the scatter, the way you do, joining dots that were never meant to join, losing the shape, finding it again. That black was enormous. It went up and up with no ceiling to it, and it was completely safe. You could lie back into it. It was a backdrop, a held breath, a dark you could look into the way you look into deep, clear water, knowing it's deep, not minding. The stars sat in it like things set down carefully. There was no edge to that dark, nothing in it that could reach you. It asked nothing of you except that you look up. That was a black you could trust your whole weight to. But that wasn't the only black I knew. There was another one, and it had teeth. I was a teenager coming home late from some club thing, the hour when the buses thin out and the streetlights start to feel like they're doing you a personal favor. The walk had a lit part and an unlit part, and I knew both, or thought I did. The lit part was fine. Then the streetlights ran out, the way they do at the edge of where someone decided the town stopped, and I was somewhere they weren't. A stretch with no moon I could find, no stars worth the name, just a dark so complete it stopped being a color and became a fact about the world. The kind where you put your hand in front of your face and it isn't there. Where the path you've walked 100 times gives you nothing back, no shape, no edge, no horizon to steer by, and your feet start going down more slowly than the rest of you, testing. Where you walk with your arms slightly out, not because you're afraid exactly, but because your body has decided, without consulting you, that it would like some warning. There was a ditch along that path, a small one. I'd crossed it 100 times in daylight without a thought. That night I walked straight into it and went down. Not dramatically. There was no edge of disaster to it. Just the ground arriving where it shouldn't, or rather not arriving, the foot going out and meeting nothing. That half instant of nothing being so much worse than the landing. The lurch. The cold surprise of being suddenly lower than I'd planned, a hand out into wet, the small private indignity of it. But here's the thing I kept, the thing that comes back. That black was not a backdrop. You could not lie back into it. It was not something you looked into. It was something you could fall into, and I had. The same word, dark, and it meant a thing with edges, a thing that could take a step out from under you. So I had 2 of them. The black you could rest your whole self against, and the black that swallowed the ground. And now there was a third thing in Auckland that wasn't black at all. I didn't work any of this out on the street that night. On the street, I just stood there, looking up like an idiot. The working out came later, in pieces, and most of it I'm still not sure of. But here's roughly what I've since come to understand about why that sky might have looked the way it did. And I'll say up front, it's a might. Start with the blue, because the blue is the part that feels impossible. You already know why the daytime sky is blue, even if you've never said it out loud. The sun's light comes in white, and the air scatters it, and blue scatters more easily than the rest, so it ends up smeared across the whole dome above you. That's the day, now. The moon doesn't make its own light, it's just sunlight, bounced off a grey rock and sent back down to us, dimmer. But it's the same light, so if the moon is up, and bright enough, the air does the very same thing to its light that it does to the sun's. It scatters it, and the sky goes blue. Genuinely, physically blue, the colour really out there in the air. Just faint enough that most nights our eyes can't catch it. If there was a bright moon over Auckland that night, and I honestly don't know if there was, it isn't in the memory, then the blue I saw was the daytime sky, turned right down low. Not a trick. The ordinary thing, happening quietly, the way it always does, just usually below the line where we can see. Then the clouds, the white ribbons. Out in real wilderness, far from any town, a cloud at night is a black hole in the sky. It sits in front of the stars and blots them out. You know it's there only because a piece of the sparkle has gone missing. A dark patch. That's the natural state of a night cloud, a silhouette. But hang that same cloud over a city and something else happens. All evening, all night, the streets and the windows and the car parks have been pouring light upward. Light we made, light meant for the pavement, spilling past it into the air. And a low cloud catches it, holds it, throws it back down soft and pale. The cloud stops being a hole and becomes a kind of mirror, lit from beneath by the town it floats over. Which is maybe what those ribbons were. The city's own light, handed back to me as weather. Or maybe it was the moon doing that too, or some of each. I don't get to know. And standing on that street, I didn't know either. I just saw blue and white where I'd been promised black my whole life. The exact cause, it turns out, is the smaller question. The thing that actually moved that night wasn't in the sky. It was the floor under the word night. Because look at what I was holding by then. 3 nights. All of them true. None of them the same. The courtyard black, vast and safe. A thing to look up into. The ditch black, close and dangerous. A thing to fall into. And the Auckland blue. Layered and lit. Not black at all. 3 skies. 1 word. And the word had been quietly doing the work of all 3 for so long that I'd never noticed it was carrying anything at all. Night sitting in my mouth like a single solid thing, when underneath it were a courtyard and a ditch and now a strip of lit cloud, none of them on speaking terms. I want to be exact about what loosened because it wasn't the fact. The fact is small. Skies come in more than one colour. A child could tell you that. What loosened was something I hadn't known I was standing on. The rule I'd carried around for decades, the night sky is black, turned out not to be a fact about the world. It was a fact about my skies, about the particular handful of darknesses I happened to have stood under. The courtyard had taught me one thing, the ditch another, and between them they'd quietly agreed on a law and signed my name to it. Night is black. They were honest teachers. They just hadn't seen very much. And neither, it turned out, had I. And once you've felt one of these give, you start to wonder about the others. Not in a frightening way, just, if night is black was never the world telling me how things are, but only the few skies I'd happened to live under, reporting in and calling it everything, then how much of the rest of what I'd call plain, obvious, just the way it is the same kind of thing? How much of the way things are is really only the way things have been, so far? Here. For me? Not wrong, exactly. Just smaller than it had been pretending to be. A local rule wearing the clothes of a universal one. That's the part that stayed with me. Not the physics, the smallness of it, and how completely the smallness had hidden itself. How a thing can feel like the plain truth, the floor itself, simply because you've never stood anywhere it wasn't true. You don't decide to believe it. Nobody sits you down. The sky just keeps being a certain color over your particular roof, night after night, until the color stops looking like a color and starts looking like the way things are. And then one evening, you're walking home half drunk on someone else's conversation. You tip your head back without thinking, and the world declines to match the rule. And you feel the ground you didn't know was ground come loose under you, gently, almost kindly. Not breaking, just opening. I still don't know what lit that sky. Maybe there was a moon I never clocked, parked out of frame, doing the old quiet work the air does with any light it's given. Maybe it was the city, all those street lamps and kitchen windows, throwing the day's electricity back up at the clouds and getting it returned as something soft and strange. Maybe both. Half the blue borrowed from the moon, half the white on loan from the streets below. I'd like to tell you. I can't. But I think about that walk more than the size of it warrants. Not because the sky was beautiful, though it was. Because of the half-second before I had any explanation. The half-second where a thing I'd never questioned simply stopped holding. And the night turned out to be larger and stranger and more local than the one I'd been carrying around in my head. I still look up more than I used to. Not for the stars particularly. Just to check what color it is tonight over this roof, under whatever's up there. Sometimes it's black. Often enough it isn't.